time is 6:15. Here is the news edited by Dulmin Samrasingha, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. Nominations for the presidency will be accepted from 10 a.m. tomorrow in Parliament. The acting president urges political parties to come together and form an all-party government. The opposition leader says an interim government should be formed to achieve certain goals. The CID probes 3 leading activists of the goal-face protest site getting 45 million rupees from overseas. A pregnant mother and her 10-year-old daughter die, and 4 others seriously injured when a motor car hit a train at Margal in Galle. Foreign news: India becomes second country to cross 2 billion COVID jabs. Sports news: Shelley and Fraser Price wins a record 5th women's 100-meter world title at World Athletics Championships. Local news in detail. Secretary General of the Parliament, Dhammika Dasanayaga, says nominations for the presidency will be accepted from 10 a.m. tomorrow in Parliament. Tomorrow will be allocated only to accept nominations. The Secretary General will act as the returning officer over the person directing nominations process. If one name was proposed and seconded, the Secretary General will announce on that day itself that member has been elected by Parliament to the vacant president's post. If names of more than one member have been proposed and seconded, an election should be held before 2 days of accepting nominations. Accordingly, if there are more names proposed, 20th Wednesday will be allocated to conduct an election to select the president. The Speaker will also have the right to vote at this election. A member is entitled only to 1 vote. However, if there are more candidates, they can mark preferential votes. The candidate who polls more than 1/2 of the valid votes cast will be announced as the president. If no candidate has polled 1/2 of the valid votes cast, counting of preferential votes will commence. At the end of such a counting, the member who has obtained a majority of votes will be declared as the new president. The Secretary General of Parliament should publish the name of the candidate in the Gazette within 3 days of selecting the president. In a special statement, Acting President Wickremesinghe explained that when he took over as Prime Minister on May 13th, the economy had collapsed, with power cuts lasting 5 hours a day. In the 2 months since then, the acting president explained that power cuts had been reduced to 3 hours a day. Fertilizer has been provided to the farmers and the gas shortage in the country has been solved. He said diesel stocks have been secured and are being distributed, and from Thursday petrol will also be distributed. He also said that relief was being provided to the citizens of the country who are struggling with the economic crisis. The acting president stated that the loans taken by paddy farmers who have planted fields less than 2 acres are being cancelled. While due to the drop in the world oil prices, the fuel prices in the country have also been reduced. He said negotiations with the International Monetary Fund were nearing conclusion, and discussions for assistance with foreign countries was also progressing. Acting President Wickremesinghe also said that due to incomplete nature of the Easter Sunday investigations, he is requesting the assistance of the UK government and their intelligence services. He said the current political crisis in the country is due to the executive presidency, and the 19th Amendment would be reintroduced, which would address many of the concerns of the public. Mr. Wickremesinghe further stated that the peaceful protesters who had legitimate concerns would be engaged by the government and solutions would be found for them. He called upon the political parties in the country to put aside their differences and not allow the country to suffer over differences over an individual. He urged them to come together and form an all-party government which would allow the country to recover from the economic crisis. Leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa says that he cannot lie and promise that relief can be given to the people immediately with the country's economic bankruptcy. A special meeting between representatives of the citizens' struggle protest movement and the opposition leader took place this morning at the opposition's leader's office in Colombo. Speaking further, the opposition leader said that an interim government should be formed to achieve certain goals through a program. Mr. Premadasa also said that although the activists had set dates for the interim governments, if the goals were not met within the relevant period, that government would also fail. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news. The Criminal Investigation Department has launched an investigation into reports that 3 leading activists of the Goal Face protest site allegedly received large amounts of funds to 3 local bank accounts from overseas. Police spokesman SSP Nihal Thaldua said that although no complaints have been made regarding the allegation, the CID is currently probing into the incident based on reports. It was reported that the 3 activists have recently opened 3 new accounts at Bank of Ceylon's Union Place branch last week, and an amount of 45 million rupees has been deposited from overseas into these 3 accounts. A few hours later, the activists who arrived at the bank had withdrawn the entire amount and threatened the bank officers who inquired about the reason for receiving the money. A pregnant mother and a 10-year-old daughter had died and 4 others were seriously injured when a motor car hit a moving train at Margala Gangarama Road railway level crossing in Galle in the southern coastal line this morning. The injured were admitted to the Karapitiya Teaching Hospital. 6 members of one family from Godakanda area were in the car, were heading to Galle to attend a wedding reception when they met with the tragedy. Police said the driver had attempted to drive through the railway crossing, ignoring signal lights and the alarm siren when the Vavuniya-bound Rajarata Rajina Express train from Beliatta was approaching and crashed against the car. The Church of Ceylon said Parliament has the constitutional obligation to elect a president who will commence the challenging task of restoring constitutionalism and accountability, repairing the collapsed economy and restoring a semblance of the normalcy in the lives of the citizens of the country. They said in a statement that the struggle has achieved its primary objective after a long period. It said they welcome the significant milestone in the campaign for democracy, accountability and justice. The statement added that the next phase of the struggle is extremely important if the campaign for democracy, accountability and justice is to continue. They said Parliament has to elect a person from among its members to serve the remainder of the presidential term. National Movement for Social Justice Chairman Karu Jayasuriya says the new president must provide a satisfactory and practical solutions to this severe economic and political crisis that the country is facing today. He said in a statement that the best approach for this would be to form an all-party government for a shorter period of time and thereby directing all political forces of the country to arrive at a common consensus. He said the first task for the all-party government should be to immediately strike off the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, which vested the majority of the powers in the hands of one person, thereby become the primary reason for the severe crisis the country is facing today. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Sri Lanka's ambassador to China, Palitha Kohana, told the Global Times in an exclusive interview, Sri Lanka has not reached any initial agreement with the IMF on debt relief, and its largest creditors, the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank, are urged to come up with a package that would speed up its debt restructuring process. He also called for more assistance from partners after the debt-ridden country claimed bankruptcy and imposed a state of emergency amid protests and shortages of the daily necessities. That ends main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, steps will be taken to upgrade this software used for issuing the National Fuel Pass, as the present software is not supportive for registering for companies or organizations which have more vehicles. Power and Energy Minister Kanchana Vijayasakara said the National Fuel Pass will be upgraded in the next few days to give an option for business and organizations that operate a number of vehicles to register. That ends Watchlight. Moving on to world news, let's take a look at the headlines. India becomes second country to cross 2 billion COVID jabs. President Zelensky suspends the head of Ukraine's spy agency and the prosecutor general. The UK may have hottest day on record with 41 Celsius forecast. Foreign news in detail. India has administered more than 2 billion COVID vaccination doses, becoming the second country to hit the milestone after China. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted yesterday stating it has strengthened the global fight against COVID-19. India's achievement comes amid a rise in COVID cases in many states. The government has asked states to step up surveillance of infections. It has also been trying to expand the booster dose program across the country. President Volodymyr Zelensky has suspended the head of Ukraine's spy agency and the prosecutor general, citing many cases of treason in the two powerful organizations. He said more than 60 former employees were now working against Ukraine in Russian-occupied areas. A total of 651 collaboration and treason cases had been opened against law enforcement officials. The officials, Ivan Bakhanov and Irina Venediktova, have not commented. The UK could have its hottest day on record this week, with temperatures forecast to hit up to 41 Celsius. The Met Office has issued a red extreme heat warning today and tomorrow in much of England, from London and the southeast part of the York and Manchester. High temperatures are also forecast across the UK, with amber warnings in the rest of England, all of Wales and the part of Scotland. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. India becomes second country to cross 2 billion COVID jabs. President Zelensky suspends the head of Ukraine's spy agency and the prosecutor general. The UK may have hottest day on record with 41 Celsius forecast. That ends world news. Moving on to development news. Agricultural Services Development Department says that the distribution of urea fertilizer provided by India is currently in progress. Department of Agrarian Services Development says that the fertilizer distribution will be carried out throughout the next few days. The fertilizer distribution is carried out by two government-owned fertilizer companies, Ceylon Fertilizer Company and Ceylon Commercial Fertilizer Company. That ends development news.
Sports news is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Cricket news. Today is the third day of the first test between Sri Lanka and Pakistan at Galle International Cricket Stadium. Sri Lanka was 329 for 9 wickets in the second innings at stumps today. Oshuda Fernandez scored 64, while Kushal Mendis scored 76. Dinesh Chandimal was not out on 86. Sri Lanka scored 222 in their first innings and Pakistan scored 218. More sports news, athletics. Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce won a second fifth women's 100-meter world title in a Jamaican clean sweep of the medals as Dana Asher-Smith finished fourth. At 35, Fraser-Pryce ran a championship record of 10.67 seconds to finish ahead of Sherika Jackson and Elena Thompson-Hara, who took silver and bronze respectively. She is the first to win 5 world titles in an individual track event. That ends sports news.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Union Assurance has become the first insurer to reach the top 10 in transparency in corporate reporting, according to the Transparency International Sri Lanka's TISL 2022 report. The TISL report published in the 2022 ranked the company at 8th place, a significant improvement from the 16th position in last year's report. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Moving on to economic news, the legal framework for the operation of bank accounts for investments in the Colombo Port City has been made operational. The overarching regulations were made by way of Gazette number 2282/59 on June 3rd. Directives by the Department of Foreign Exchange were subsequently made on June 28th. Accordingly, a foreign entity or local entity with funds out of inward remittances received from overseas shall be able to operate bank accounts to route investments into the port city. That ends economic news. Finally, on to the weather report. The Met Department says several spells of showers will occur in western, Sabragambo and northwestern provinces and in Nuwara, Kandy, Gol and Mathura districts. Showers or thunder showers may occur at several places in Uva and eastern provinces during the night. That ends weather report. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nominations for the presidency will be accepted from 10 a.m. tomorrow in Parliament. The acting president urges political parties to come together and form an all-party government. The opposition leader says an interim government should be formed to achieve certain goals. The CID probes 3 leading activists of the goal-face protest site getting 45 million rupees from overseas. A pregnant mother and her 10-year-old daughter die and 4 others seriously injured when a motor car hit a train at Margal in Gaul. Foreign news, India becomes second country to cross 2 billion COVID jabs. Sports news, Shelley Ann Fraser-Pryce wins the second fifth women's 100-meter world title at World Athletic Championships. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka.